I'm gonna find the best weapon inside order, and every single weapon is gonna be judged on these 3 things: power, replayability, and no hacks. I'll explain them all in a second, but there's something else I have to tell you first. I've always enjoyed watching people speedrun Splatoon, and I think it would be cool to try it out myself. So whatever weapon ends up on top, I'm gonna be using in my very own speedrun. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. So to help me on my journey, I created this system to rank every weapon. Each category will use a scale ranging from 1 to 11. Why? Because I'm insane. Okay, I guess I can explain the categories. With power, I'm not just looking at a weapon's damage, but also its ink consumption, fire rate, range, and any abilities the weapon might have. Basically everything that makes that weapon what it is. Next is replayability, which is something side order tries to achieve, and the weapons play a large factor in that. Does the weapon feel nice to use? Am I having fun with it? Where is little buddy? Seriously, where is he? Why isn't he here? For the last category, no hacks, I wanted to get an overall feel of the weapon. So getting rid of upgrades allows us to remove any biases. Just chilling out here. This way we can rank the weapon based on how hard it is to climb the spire and beat Smallest. It's harder than I thought. Inside order, you're constantly bombarded with hordes of enemies, and the dualies definitely don't do the best job with just the firing mode alone. Where I think they really shine is in their dodge rolls. With the rush attack and dodge roll color chips, what was once a kinda useless maneuver becomes a silly little explosion. They're quite fun to use this way because you don't really need to think, you just kinda roll around into everything. No. Stop, please! So using all of this super important information, I started my first no hacks run. Making it to floor 10 was pretty easy, and I blew past the next 9 floors to clear floor 20 with no problems. I was making a lot of progress towards the top, but of course this guy, let's call him Barry, won't be seeing him again, decided to end it on floor 26. It didn't really matter though, because I spent some pearls to continue my run. Yeah, no, obviously not. It was obvious that this was harder than I thought it was gonna be. It took 5 hours to finally reach Smallest, where honestly, it wasn't that hard to kill. Yes! That took up 5 hours of my life. Okay, so now to rank the weapon. For power, I'd have to give it a 6. It's kind of middle of the road for me. It gets the job done, but I don't feel like it ever really excels in its firepower. For replayability, it's a really fun weapon when all you do is bulldoze your way through crowds of gelatins, so I'm giving it an 8. And for no hacks, it gets a 6. Mainly because I'm not great at the game and this took way too long to do, and I have to do it for every single one. The Brella doesn't have any standout features, except this one thing. The Pearl drone. Seriously, I don't think people understand how insane Pearl is. I mean, the footage speaks for itself. Bro. And you know, I might be a little biased. I have a small little companion I love as well. Isn't that right, little buddy? What are you watching? Now, Pearl is available for every weapon inside order, but the reason I put her with the Brella is because they work really well together. Not only does its palette make drone chips more common, but the combo between the Brella Canopy's defense and Pearl's relentless attacks makes a perfect harmony. Okay, time for no hacks. My first run was really similar to my first dualies run, except this time, instead of floor 26, I made it to floor 27. Oh, thank you. Seriously, you don't have to. Stop. Seriously, be quiet. Please. I just want silence. The voices are so loud. I had a few more stupid deaths on my adventure, but nothing like I had with the dualies. So eventually I made my way to Smallest. Oh, look at him, so cute. And blew it up. For power, I've got to give this thing a 9. The weapon is great at defense while letting the Pearl drone do the damage, but it can get trickier on later floors. With replayability, while it's probably not the strongest, I had a ton of fun watching the absolute chaos that happens with the Pearl drone, so it gets an 11. And while no hacks was easier than the dualies, it still took me a few hours and multiple attempts before I reached the top. So I think an 8 feels about right. And hey, now's probably a good time to show you the current leaderboard. Once all the weapons are ranked, whatever's at the top is gonna be used in the speed run. But for now, it's time for splattershot. The splattershot has to be the best all-around weapon, because it's a shooter. It's got a good firing rate, good damage, good ink consumption, good mobility, good looks. Oh yeah. My favorite color chips to use are firing rate, shot spread reduction, and piercing. I think it's easy to see why. Holy. This must be because it's a shooter. I think these color chips are probably some of the strongest and most enjoyable chips for this weapon. I actually spent some time just shooting gelatins, and I want you to take a guess on how long I did that for. Was it A, 5 minutes, B, 10 minutes, or C, 30 minutes? Well, if you answered C, you'd be wrong. It's actually the hidden D option, an hour and a half. This was a major waste of my time. Once I finished doing all that, I started my first no hacks run, and it went as expected. I made it all the way to floor 30, then, wait, floor 30. Yes, sir. Wow, first run. Yeah, splattershot is kind of insane. For power, I'm gonna give it a 10. It's just really good all around, which also happens to be good if you're planning on speedrunning. Replayability, as good as the weapon is, it just doesn't feel very special to me. Probably because it's a shoot. So I'm giving it a 7. For no hacks, the splattershot is probably the easiest weapon to use. It is so good in every area, hence an 11. Oh yeah, let's go. The roller is not my first choice whenever I'm playing side order. It feels kind of clunky and slow for how fast the game is normally, and it takes a long time before it feels like there's been any significant upgrades to it, no matter what color chips you use. That being said, running over gelatins like it's nothing is kind of fun. Please not again! Unfortunately, the roller isn't as useful as I would like it to be when it comes to no hacks. It is really slow for the beginning floors and takes a lot of caution to survive. I also died on floor 30 once, which was clearly not a skill issue, and the roller needs to be buffed. So power gets an 8. Replayability is 6 because it's slow, and for no hacks, I think it sits at about a 6 as well. It needs all the help it can get from upgrades. Otherwise, it's just not as strong as everything else. Why are you still here? Go to the next weapon. Charger! The charger is considered one of the best weapons in side order, and it's the one used in the top speedruns, which if you were actually paying attention, you would know is what I'm trying to do. There's gonna be a test on this, guys, come on! Now, most of the color chips in the game work well, but the quick charge upgrade is where this thing shines. Nintendo did their best to make side order as balanced as possible, which I appreciate, but then they added this into the game, and it just breaks it. That was insane. I'm shooting you. You're get deaded. Get dieted. Yippee! Now, when it comes to no hacks, the charger is definitely a little slow on the first few floors. Once you get closer to the top, though, it actually gets easier. Except, of course, when Barry shows up. I told you we'd see him again. So, power. It's an easy 11. Everything I just said should explain why. Now, replayability is a different story. Being overpowered can sometimes ruin the experience of a challenge, but sometimes it's fun to shred through crowds of gelatins. He's right behind me, isn't he? Oh no, booty! I think the charger falls neatly between these categories, so I'm gonna give it an 8. And with no hacks, all you need is a little luck and you'll probably reach the top. So I've given it a 9. I was under the impression that this thing was bad. I was so wrong. At first glance, you might think that this weapon would kind of suck, because I certainly did. But let me tell you something, this is a good weapon. Use some quick charge and this thing gets rolling. Some splash damage and you're cruising. And the explosiveness of this thing literally annihilates every gelatin in the area. What? To me, it has the perfect balance of being easy for beginners, but still needing lots of skill to fully master. So for power, I'd give it a solid 10. It can still be a little bit too slow sometimes, but I haven't ever had much trouble with it. Replayability also sits at a 10 for me, because explosions are fun. Now you might notice I haven't talked about no hacks. That's because I literally can't show you anything. I made it to floor 30 on my first try. I actually just lost most of the footage, so, you know. That's my bad, but hey, it gets an 11, putting it nicely at the top of the leaderboard. Time for the stamper. The stamper is fairly strong on its own, but I personally think the palette it comes with is where its strength lies. It's lucky chips, that's its strength. Lucky chips all have pretty useful functions, like items, armor, more ink, discs, which are insane, and my personal favorite, explosions. These are all really good for any weapon, but I want to touch on why it's particularly good with the stamper. You see, the stamper's damage is really good. It's a similar case to the Brella in that it has multiple functions and can protect itself in dangerous situations. And on top of that, the perks of insane amounts of item drops and other lucky items, and you have what I like to call the stamper, because that's its name. Now, the stamper kind of surprised me when it came to no hacks. Because the weapon relies on its common tone, which we don't have access to anymore, I thought this was going to be a bit of a challenge. But I was shocked when I beat Smallest on only my second attempt. There might have been some luck involved, but even still, the entire climb felt really consistent. You could say I got a lucky run. Am I right? Oh, come on, it wasn't that bad. For power, this thing gets a solid 9. Replayability sits nicely on a 9 as well, because I like explosions. And no hacks gets a 10. Fairly simple scores. I don't know what to say other than bucket. With the slosher, you need to use very specific color chips if you want to win. So listen up. Pick up a few support chips at the start. Then you need to eat the chips. You need to eat the chips. I'm telling you, eat them. You'll need some more. Eat the chips. Eat them. Why are you shouting? By now, you should be at floor 30, and as long as you follow these simple rules, you'll be annihilating Smallest in no time. Wait, is that? Power gets an 11, this thing's overpowered. Replayability gets a 7 because the slosher is slow and a little boring. No offense, big man. And no hacks gets a 9. I died twice, like literally nothing happened. So I'll just go ahead and put this right here. Yeah, okay. The blaster's strength lies within its AoE, which for you non-gamer nerds stands for area of effect. Essentially just how much space you can control. If you can find color chips that upgrade its explosiveness, you're basically making a very big bomb even bigger. This actually helps the blaster because you don't need to wait for specific color chips because anything will do. Oh, hey, I was just looking for Mr. Blast. What? You're looking for me. Who are you? What are you? I'm Mobility. I'm here to
Good enough.
What? All of these chips make the blaster better, so there isn't a need to spend $1 million on floor resets. Now this weapon kind of surprised me for no hacks. I didn't expect the blaster to do that great, but I made it to floor 30 and beat Smallest on my first try. I almost died on floor 2 though, which was a little embarrassing. In reality though, the blaster's AoE is really good at keeping gelatins at bay, so no hacks was kind of trivial. To rate this weapon, I think power gets a 9. It's above average and one of the stronger weapons inside order. Replayability gets a 9 as well, because I like explosions. We've been through this before. And no hacks easily gets an 11. It's definitely good, but not good enough for the speedrun. Yeah, anyways, if you could just sit right there. Awesome, thanks. Now the brush isn't the greatest splatting machine, but what it lacks in damage, it makes up for in absolutely nothing. This thing just isn't great, and I think it has to do with what its strength is. Both the brush and the roller, which I also ranked pretty low, are mobility weapons. You use them to get around quicker and put paint down, but inside order you don't really need that. There are situations where having the ability to move quickly and splat gelatins at the same time has saved me, but I think when the entire weapon relies on this being its strength, it's just not going to succeed. In my eyes, the brush is just a worse version of an already bad weapon. And like that already bad weapon, it wasn't very good at no hacks. The brush is slow, it doesn't have good damage, it can't paint well, and it has nothing to do with being a skill issue, I promise. Maybe I'm being a little too hard on this thing, but I'm not particularly a fan of it, so power gets a 5. Replayability, again, being a little biased, I think sits at a 7. And last, no hacks, which gets a 7. So, right there. Super cheeky segue into the splatling. The splatling does a really good job at clearing out hordes, mainly because of its good firing rate. What's extra special about it though is actually its ink consumption. You see, most levels inside order don't take more than a minute, unless it's a splat zones level. Oh no. Because of the relatively short stages, you don't normally run out of ink with this thing, unlike some of the other ink-hungry weapons. Pair that with the fire rate of a literal minigun, and you have yourself a decent weapon for climbing the spire. Unless it's no hacks. I might literally just be inept, but this thing gave me way too much trouble without upgrades. I died on floor 3, like what? My only excuse is that little buddy wasn't sitting on my desk where he normally sits. He was in my computer for some reason.
What are you doing in there, little guy?
Power gets an 8, replayability gets a 7, and no hacks gets a 5. Just move on to the undershot. Right off the bat, I can tell you that the undershot is not going to be the best weapon inside order, but that doesn't mean it isn't at least worth talking about. It is nowhere near the level of power as all the other weapons until you look at no hacks. The Octoshot is basically just a splattershot, but with a better kit. And knowing that the splattershot is already good at no hacks, this becomes the easiest weapon to use. It's pretty much designed for that purpose. I won't bore you with anything else. Here's the scores I gave it if you want to know, and it gets put right here on the leaderboard. Which means that surprisingly, the tri-stringer comes out on top, which also means it's time for the speedrun. I wasn't exactly sure what I was gonna do. The current world record was 4 minutes and 56 seconds, and I didn't know how I was gonna beat that. So I just started. I made sure to memorize the floors, I reviewed color chip combinations, I brought little buddy out of the computer and put him back on my desk for emotional support, and I sat down and started my first speedrun. Next thing you know, I'm on floor 10, then floor 20. I'm picking up good color chips left and right. I get an extra vending machine. Not that one, but what? The floors start flying by. I'm on the last level. I'm doing lots of damage. I finish the run, and I get a final time of 4 minutes and 53 seconds. Wait, 4 minutes and 53. What? Yeah, I actually got the world record. I don't know.
Subscribe, cause when we hit 5,000 subscribers, I'll send small fry into space, into space, into space.
Holy crap, what? Dude, oh my gosh, what? There's literally no way.